There's no argument that Marilyn Monroe is an icon. Many people know basic facts about her and her career, but do not really know the whole truth about her. Today I'm going to present Marilyn Monroe and why she is not just a world-known icon, but also an icon to me. Today I'm wearing a red dress and red lipstick, which is something she wore quite often, so let's get right into the presentation. Marilyn Monroe is a widely known icon throughout the world because of how she was a famous celebrity while also having an academic background that not many people know about. She was a very misunderstood icon, which I will talk about in a later slide, and that is what makes her so special to me. Marilyn Monroe dealt with a lot of similar struggles that I deal with on a daily basis, except she dealt with them in Hollywood and I deal with them at university. I'm a mechanical engineering major, which is highly saturated in men, just as the film industry in Hollywood consisted of a majority of men. In comparison, in the 1950s, women made up less than 20% of casts, and today, mechanical engineering is about 16% women and 84% men. I've noticed that a lot of the time, since I am a girl, many people automatically assume I'm not as smart or capable of doing good work without even talking to me. Sometimes, even professors make comments that make me feel as if I shouldn't be studying mechanical engineering. Similar assumptions followed Marilyn Monroe, as she was only given dumb blonde roles, and people assumed a lot about her abilities based on her gender. However, she was able to overcome this and become an amazing actress and singer while proving everyone's preconceptions about her wrong. I am still working on this, as sometimes people's comments or actions towards me still play with my head. However, I hope to overcome this just as Marilyn Monroe overcame her struggles. The fact that she was able to succeed in such a men-dominated industry while still maintaining her femininity makes her an icon to me and gives me hope that I will be able to do the same. So how did Marilyn Monroe go from the wholesome girl next door to America's sweetheart? Well, it was an uphill battle for her. Marilyn Monroe was a child during the Great Depression and started off her life bouncing around different homes. She had many visits from social workers and even lived in an orphanage for part of her childhood. She got married in high school and dropped out, but when her husband went to war, she had to get a job. It was in this weapons factory job that she was discovered by a photographer who wanted her to model. Soon after this, she signed her first contract in 1946 with 20th Century Fox, but they did not renew her contract because they did not think she was star material. She did not become a household name until later in her career with the films Gentlemen Prefer Blondes and How to Marry a Millionaire in 1953. In these movies, she uses her charm and sex appeal to get the rich men she wants, something which was unheard of at the time. She was able to go from rags to riches without much help, and this also helps define her as an icon. Marilyn Monroe was not always a star. In fact, her real name was not always Marilyn Monroe either. She was born with the name Norma Jean Morrison. However, she was encouraged to change her name to something that sounded more Hollywood, and in 1956 changed her name to Marilyn Monroe. She got the name Marilyn from one of her favorite stars named Marilyn Miller, and Monroe was her mother's maiden name. Marilyn Monroe did not just change her name, but she changed her whole persona. She dyed her hair from brown to platinum blonde and often wore a bright red statement lip. She inspired her new look by Jean Harlow, who also had platinum blonde hair and some argue was the very first sex symbol. Although she exuded confidence in her films and modeling, initially she did not feel that way. Amy Green, the wife of Marilyn Monroe's photographer, was walking through New York City with Marilyn when she got a glimpse of what was behind her persona. She described how Marilyn could put on plain clothes and blend in with the average person and no one would notice her. However, within seconds she could change her demeanor. Yet even though she was wearing the same clothes and looked exactly the same as before, suddenly people recognized her as the famous Marilyn Monroe. She truly faked it until she made it, and this encounter proves that. She could go from Norma Jean Morrison, someone nobody knew, to Marilyn Monroe, a worldwide icon, with only added confidence and no real change in her appearance. This is very inspiring because it proves how far confidence can take you, which is something I am working on and furthers her icon status to me. Lastly, Marilyn Monroe used color theory in forming her new persona. She was often seen wearing red and had statement red lips. The color red is associated with lust, passion, desire, courage, and confidence, and Marilyn Monroe embodied all these characteristics. One of the things that made Marilyn Monroe stand out among other actresses was how she went against cultural norms, changing the trends at the time. Before Marilyn Monroe's era, the beauty standard was thin women. However, Marilyn Monroe paved the way for the new beauty standard of curvy bodies. Hourglass shape became very important in the 1950s because of her. Some even believe Marilyn Monroe's body directly inspired the plastic surgery that the Kardashians underwent. When she was first becoming popular, the norm was for women to be modest and proper and not flaunt their bodies for men. However, Marilyn Monroe went against this and created her own blonde bombshell bombshell persona. She wore clothes that accentuated her full and curvy figure and quickly became a femininity and sex icon. What makes her so iconic is that she didn't just use this persona to attract men, but she did it to empower herself and other women. In fact, she was named the sexiest woman of the century by Playboy magazine in 1999. The first movie that she proved herself as a successful actress and converted people's view of her from just a dumb blonde was Bus Stop in 1956. One of her most iconic movie scenes was the film 7-Year Itch in 1955 when her skirt blew up. This furthered her image as a sex icon and inspired scenes in future movies. When looking at Marilyn Monroe from an outside perspective, it's easy to jump to conclusions about who she is. She is often just thought of as a sex symbol, a casualty of stardom, and a mistress to many men. However, this is not all there was to her. She started making her own production company called Marilyn Monroe-Productions LLC in 1954, making her the second woman in U.S. history to own her own production company. She also was very well read and collected books. In fact, she had a library of over 400 books about educational topics such as politics, psychology, history, and philosophy. She was also rumored to have an IQ of 168. For reference, the average person has an IQ of something between 85 and 115. Additionally, she was able to be famous and intelligent, all while struggling from various neurological disorders and a speech impediment. She stuttered since she was a child, and this made her lose confidence in her acting abilities. However, she learned to use this stutter to her strengths and developed her signature throaty voice when she spoke to help cover it up. She also suffered from bipolar disorder and dyslexia, but was able to succeed despite suffering from both these conditions. Although from the outside she may have looked like any other dumb blonde, she was incredibly intelligent, and this makes her even cooler to me because it was impressive that she still valued knowledge after making it in Hollywood, as many celebrities disregard educational studies after becoming famous. The most recent example of how Marilyn Monroe is still very present in culture today was when Kim Kardashian wore one of her old dresses to the 2022 Met Gala. This dress was previously sold in 2016 for $4.8 million, making it the most expensive piece of clothing ever sold. This is the dress Marilyn Monroe sang Happy Birthday to John F. Kennedy in. Kim Kardashian is one of the most influential women in the world, and the fact that she chose to wear Marilyn Monroe's old dress to the Met Gala says a lot about how she respects what Marilyn Monroe stood for and what she introduced into Hollywood. Although it sparked a lot of debate, it was one of the most talked about outfits, proving how Marilyn Monroe is still very much a part of culture today. Another way Marilyn Monroe's legend will remain forever is through the art that Andy Warhol painted in her honor. His silkscreen painting named Marilyn Diptych, which he completed in 1962, shows an image of Marilyn Monroe copied numerous times. This is his way of representing how she has eternal influence and how her presence is still in the world today. It is also in black and white on one side and in color on the other, to represent how there is a huge contrast between her public and private life. Lastly, her aesthetics inspire many celebrities and brands, such as Madonna, Lindsay Lohan, Dolce & Gabbana, and Betsy Johnson. MAC Cosmetics also created a line of red lipsticks inspired by her. Now that you know more about Marilyn Monroe's background, there is no denying that she was an icon that will stay unforgotten forever. She is an even bigger icon to me because we dealt with similar struggles, even though we are in vastly different industries. I hope you enjoyed diving a little deeper into the secret life of Marilyn Monroe, and now see her as an icon too.